Lee, this was one of my last ditch efforts to remain Christian. This thought right here. In my video where I expressed about the Cain and Abel story and how this guy lied. First, this guy lied to Cain and Abel's parents by telling them that in the day that they eat from the fruit that they will die. Well, the word used there is yom, and yom means a 24-hour day. And although many Christians try to say that, well, in First Peter it says that one day unto God is 1,000 years to man. That is a metaphor. That is not a literal term that is being used. So one day is not 1,000 years. If that being the case, then everywhere else in the Bible where it talks about one day, it was 1,000 years. The one day that the sun stayed up so that they can defeat their enemies, with Joshua can defeat his enemies. Are you saying that that one day was 1,000 years? In every other part of the Bible, one day is 1,000 years. When he told Cain that he would be a wanderer, yet Cain immediately left and built a city of Nod. Well, he built a city in the land of Nod and married a wife. Then he lied about Cain being a wanderer, as Cain dwelled in a city that he himself built according to the story. But you're saying that it is not God who lied, but it is the writers of the Bible who lied. In my last ditch effort to remain Christian, I became more of a Gnostic Christian at that time frame, believing that the God of the Old Testament was an evil God, that the God that Jesus was talking about was the true Plamora, the true God, the good God, not Yaldabaoth, not the evil God who created this earth, not the demiurge who created this earth and has entrapped all the souls of angelic divine beings that we are inside this meat suit of a human flesh. And that the writings and teachings of Jesus supersede the Old Testament God, because only the Old Testament God, an evil God, would genocide. An Old Testament God would approve of slavery. An Old Testament God would treat women so harshly that would single out a specific group and say, you are the chosen ones, and everybody else goes to hell or we'll genocide all of them. That kill all the fighting men, kill all the young boys, kill the old men, kill the women who have known a man, but take the young girls who have not known a man as your wife. Only an evil God would say that. Only an evil God would justify Lot sending his daughters, desiring to send his daughters out there. Only an evil God, later in Judges, would allow for the man concubine and the other man's daughter to be gang raped to the point of death, and then chop up her body so that they can then come back and destroy these people. And then after destroying these people, go back and steal a bunch of wives and destroying other people so that the tribe of Benjamin can then have wives. And then kidnap some girls while they're dancing to have wives. Only an evil God. And that was my thinking. That it was lying men who wrote the Old Testament. And that if it didn't measure up to what Jesus was talking about, then those were lies. But that is called cherry picking. Because you then still have to look at the Old Testament and cherry pick which parts of the Old Testament is of a true God that Jesus was talking about, and which parts of the New Testament is the actual true writings. Because even in the New Testament, it still says that you can have slaves. Because although it says that in the kingdom of heaven, there is neither free nor bondman. That is only in the kingdom of heaven. Not this plane of existence that we live on now. Have your slaves. When it says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar. Yes, give Caesar his money. Obey the laws of Caesar. The laws of Caesar at that time frame said that slavery was okay. The laws of Caesar at that time frame said that the mistreatment of women is okay. That women are property. That's okay. You see, when the New Testament says that whatever government or country or ruler or king that you are born under is the one that God placed you under, that God put that leader in place. That means that God put Mao Zedong in place. God put Adolf Hitler in place. God put Stalin in place. God put the founding fathers of America, whom over the majority of them owned slaves, in place. That each president that continued slavery and each president that then allowed for Jim Crow laws, that God put those people in place, and I am to obey and pray for them, that I am to follow that. How can that, even then during the teachings of Jesus and Paul, how can that be a good God? How can it be? Was it not your Jesus who said that what God, when it came to marriage, that what God had put together, let no man tear asunder? So when a husband is beating his wife, she is not supposed to divorce that husband. When a husband is mentally abusing his wife, she is not to leave that husband. That when a wife does the same to the husband, he is not supposed to leave her. When she becomes violent towards him, he is not supposed to leave her. When she is mentally abusing him, he is not supposed to leave her. That all marriages have been put together by God. Now, I know some are going to say that man put some of these marriages together. Well, how do you know which relationships are put together by God and which ones are put together by man? Because almost every marriage starts with love and beauty and is romanticized and all of that in today's world. True. Not more than 200 plus years ago, most marriages were arranged. What about my ancestors who were forced into marriage and forced into this religion, who were forced to be breeders? Am I supposed to accept those as well? So how do you choose? How do you pick what is the lie and what is the truth? It will basically come down to your perspective and how you see the universe that would determine whether or not something is of God and something is not of God. It's all based on your culture. It's all based on the nation that you live in, the parents that you grew up with, the community you were surrounded by. That would be the determining factor, not the book itself. There is no Holy Spirit that guides in these teachings, because the same teaching, people will have a different perspective, both claiming to be led by the Spirit. So who is right and who is wrong? There were those praying for the man that is being hanged, and the man that is being hung is praying as well to the same God of the people who are doing the hanging. Who is the Holy Spirit guiding? Of course, in our morality today, we'll say that the Holy Spirit was not guiding those who were hanging the man. But how do you know? How do you pick and choose? It's based on what side you're on. Because those who were in league with the ones who were doing the hanging are going to say that the Holy Spirit was leading them to do so. We pick and choose what's right and what's wrong, who's right and who's wrong, which eventually I had to walk away from the teachings of the Bible in itself, because at all times of the writings of the Bible and all times of the doctrines of the Bible has been bent to the will of man, because the whole Bible was written by man. At no point is the Bible inspired by a God, because if it was, that's an evil God in the Old Testament and an evil God in the New Testament. At all times, this God is evil. Therefore, I cannot follow any of the teachings of this God, because even if the Bible has some good things about it, have some cookie around it, the center of the Bible is poison. And if you eat through the cookie long enough, you will eat the poison and you will still die. Your spirit will die, your soul will die, your car will die, whatever you want to call it, it will still die from the poison of the Bible. This is why I don't follow it. This is why I accept absolute moralities. and not these objective ones that the Bible have. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.